Welcome back to the Scale Forward podcast. I'm your host, Russell. Today, I'm joined by Kfir, the co-founder of IronVest. IronVest is a cybersecurity company that's working to eliminate fraud and restore trust on the internet through real-time identity binding and AI automation. Kfir, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Hi, Russell. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to speak with you today.
Yes, it's you're more than welcome. Pleasure to have you here as well, sharing some insights on your background, who you are, and what you're building at IronVest, which leads me into the first question. Can you give us a bit of an introduction to who you are, a brief history of your background in terms of your career, and what eventually led you down the road to start IronVest?
Sure. So you could say I'm one of those people who got hooked with technology at a very young age. I was very much drawn to the kind of intersection between sheer curiosity of understanding how things work and the ability to take technology and harness it for an actual impact on people that use it in their day-to-day life. So that combination seemed very unique to me and was very appealing to me. So started at a very young age. Throughout my career, I've built anything from large-scale systems at companies like Microsoft and Amazon to deep research algorithms at MIT and other institutions, as well as a few startups along the way. Moved back and forth from kind of big corporate and entrepreneurial activities. Again, been to Amazon at the height of the cloud. We would go to Vegas to conferences at the very peak of the cloud and be like, rock stars, knowing nothing, and have everyone come talk to us as people who built AWS. It was a very enlightening experience. After that, just before IronVest, jumped to a different company who built AI. Before AI was cool. Now AI is like everything people talk about. But at Veritone, my previous company, the founders had a very strong vision on how AI will change the world before it became such a big thing. I jumped on that ship and managed all of the products and technology and strategy and built up together a very cool and elaborated business around AI. Then came ChatGPT and all that, and we were just on a roll. When I moved back to Israel after a few years in California and Seattle and Boston, moved back to Israel with the family, started IronVest. I was very itching to start a new company. It was a great time with my partners, my co-founders. Things came, the stars were aligned for all of us to start a business together. We went out and raised money and started IronVest. And here we are. I'm sure we're going to talk about the company.
We definitely will. One question I had, you've done corporate and entrepreneurship. You eventually went down the entrepreneurship road. What are some of the highlights or standouts in terms of what's good about corporate versus what's good about entrepreneurship, and give us some insights into the world of the two and their differences?
First of all, it is very different, right? It's being an Israeli, born and raised in Israel, there's a lot of the culture is directed towards entrepreneurship and being frugal and innovative, and it's very much around us here. So we kind of take it almost as granted. But when I moved to the real corporate US, I saw that that's not always the case, right? And the biggest difference to me is the ability to work in conditions that are not convenient. I always think about it as, can you do your best work when your chair is wiggling, right? It's not comfortable. It's not the best chair that you can have. Can you do it with like headphones that are slightly broken? I mean, it's not the case really. I mean, even in startups, we can, we raised enough money to buy headphones and chairs, but this is how I think about it. Like, can you do your job when everything else is against you and you don't have the bubble that wrap around your, day-to-day work and make everything convenient? And it's not about chairs and headphones. It's about when you need to hire, can you hire the best people without the best HR department and recruiters and all that? Can you go out and find the best people in your network, right? When you need to build something, can you do it without your DevOps department? If you can be more on the entrepreneurial side. For, same goes for marketing and sales. Can you sell without a fantastic external marketing team that is well funded, creating the best sales enablement, etc.? or can you do it without it? And this is the biggest, I think, difference between people who are even enjoying being on the entrepreneurial side because they don't want those conveniences. They want to do things their own way and they want to just run forward without those. They almost view those conveniences of the corporate as limitations or hurdles, right? But on the other hand, corporate has all of that system that makes you work a lot more efficiently, right? So this for me is the biggest difference at a high level, and obviously it goes down to a lot of things in the day to day.
Yeah, corporates, depending what corporate, is quite a well-oiled machine, right? Whereas entrepreneurship is, in the beginning anyway, really quite the opposite. You're kind of building the machine, keeping it oiled, figuring out how to build a better machine, putting out fires, starting new ones. It's a journey. You have to enjoy that, right? And embrace the struggle, enjoy learning new solutions to new problems that you might not have been familiar with before. And also, we leave a 9 to 5 to work a 16-hour day instead. It's not for everybody, is what I'm saying. But obviously, you found your joy in that.
You have to like it, right? And this is, by the way, when I'm hiring, it is definitely something that I'm looking for more so than like, does the person know how to code or how to write the best content for marketing? Or first and foremost, are they going to enjoy the hectic, exciting roller coaster of a startup? Like, are they going to be cool with me changing direction twice a week? Are they going to be complaining about it, or is this company doesn't know where it's going? And obviously, it's not good to do it too often, but it happens, right? And are they going to love it and tell their friends that this is what's fun about the work, or are they going to be annoyed by it and every time it's going to be an uphill battle? So some people are fantastic, highly talented, but just not a good fit for either.
Yeah, they like stability or direction rather than the unknown. Okay, so you mentioned your partners, some co-founders. What's some of their backgrounds and what ultimate sort of gap in the market did you see that led you to start IronVest together?
Yeah, so first of all, I was very fortunate to start IronVest with a fantastic group of people. About half, two of us in Israel, two of us in the East Coast. We know each other through walks of life for over 20 years in different ways. Everyone is highly accomplished in business. We have a marketing guy, we have a product guy. One of my partners has really good background in fraud and financial services. So it was a really good group to start. And even more so, when we started, all of us brought all of our superstars that in the network to work with us. And very quickly, we built a team that was a very strong, fun to work with team in the company. And that was, I think for me, that was one of the biggest motivators to keep building both the company, the business, the product, etc. So that's about the team of founders. Now, none of us is a first timer. None of us, it's, first or second job in the market. We all have one or two gray hairs, not too many, but at least one or two. And what we saw is that we need a big thing, right? We wanted to solve a big problem. And what we went out solving is we wanted to eliminate fraud in the internet, right? No more fraud, no more scams. Honestly, very, I don't know. Ambitious is a positive word, but some would say delusional. Some would say, over ambitious. But it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if we actually eliminate it. In the end, this is what we are going for, right? This is the vision. And we went and thought about it very, very deeply from our experiences in financial services and in fraud and cybersecurity and AI. And we all come from those worlds. And we saw that the biggest gap today is that organizations are trying to solve fraud the way they protect their physical buildings, right? They put gates and guards at the doors, right? At best, they also guard the back door. At worst, it's only the front door, right? But even they guard all the entrances. And then they have inside the building a bunch of signals, a bunch of detectors, right? Could be security cameras, it could be key cards on doors, and like Mission Impossible, it could be like lasers that you have to evade in order to get the fight, right? But it doesn't matter how well you do it, this is not how you should defend the digital world. And there are exact similarities to defending the building is everything about authentication. And defending inside the building is everything about signals and detection in the fraud world, right? There are signals for behavior, how the user is behaving, signals for devices, location. All those signals are being collected by different companies. Some of them are founded by my co-founders, successful companies, collect all this data, analyze it, use AI, which I've used in Veriton extensively as a anomaly detection, and try to get a statistical answer, 75% that Russell is not doing what it should be doing, what he should be doing now, right? This is the approach today in the market. And there's layers and layers and layers of services that all serve this approach. Lots of operational cost, and the worst part, still lots of fraud. It's not solving fraud. And fraud is a problem both for the organization, for the bank, financial institution, business, and for the person, right? And for the individual. No one wants to get defrauded. No one wants to fight the bank to get a refund. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, right? It's a big problem for individuals. So we said, okay, this problem all stems from the separation between identity and action. And hear me out. In the real world, if you go to a bank, a real physical branch, those still exist, by the way, I checked, they still exist. You go to a physical branch, and you sit in front of the banker and start a transaction, whatever transaction that may be. And then you walk out of the room, and I step in, sit in your chair, and continue the transaction with the banker, asking for, seeing the information, making decisions on continuing the transaction, answering questions. What I just described seems ridiculous, right? It's not like it never happened in the real world. It never will happen. It's just purely ridiculous what I just described. But that's what's happening in almost 100% of the cases of fraud in the digital world. Entity and action are separated in the digital world, which doesn't allow the organization or the decision maker to continuously make sure that the person is doing the action and that the action itself are all authentic, and this is what they need to continue. Right? So we said, okay, how can we solve it in the digital world? Now I'm getting less philosophical. We spent almost a year and a half on developing a bunch of patents and a bunch of systems and technologies to actually solve that. We call that Action ID. We gave it different names along the way, but the overarching idea here is that we take continuously all the actions that you're doing and your identity, we bind them together all the time, and we give one coherent signal to the bank that the person who is engaging right now is the right person doing what they think they're doing, right? Consistently, and an unbreakable signal throughout the session. And this is the big thing, right? The big thing is we stop guarding the gate, we stop collecting, detection signals, we bind identity to action and let it run continuously throughout every session that you're doing online. Does that make sense?
Yes. And also leads me to some questions on how, but that might be too technical for this show. The question that I kept bringing up in my mind, and it might not be relevant, and if it isn't, tell me. Do you remember like a couple of years ago when AI videos first came out and everyone's like deepfakes and all those deepfakes of like Trumps and everything were coming out? So are we having to give IronVest like photos of ourselves, videos, and then you're constantly filming us while we're interacting, say like online banking? What about deepfakes? Have you debunked that and come up with solutions for all of that? What happens in the world of AI in terms of, an AI version of me?
Exactly. So first, before I think you touched on another point, which is privacy. Privacy is a big thing, right? We started with a mission of, we are privacy first, privacy preserving company, and a lot of the time we invested in actually making this technology privacy preserving, right? Because we do collect a lot of information about you. In some cases, we use things like, Face ID in Apple, where we open the camera and detect you. Some cases we know where you are physically. We see your screen, what you're doing on the screen. Obviously, only in the context of the bank, application and website, nothing outside the context. That context, all with like full consent and knowledge. But still, people do want to make sure that everything they do is private. So this is all built into the system. It's not a spyware, right? We make decisions and bind it cryptographically, and the result is just a number at the end. It's not like someone can track it. But this is an important point, right? Because it may be a deterrence for some people, but realistically, the world is going towards those type of technology. Now, with AI, it's a big headache, right? In everything we do, we use AI in the product, we use AI in the company, I mean, from an operations standpoint. So we use AI for good, but bad guys are using AI as well a lot. It makes it A, gives them capabilities they didn't have before, like editing a video of me and using it. And B, it's giving them scale for capabilities they did have, right? Fraudsters could write a misleading SMS to someone, but now they can do it at scale, and they can a special one for everyone, for every person, depending on the information, etc. at scale. So people constantly think about the stuff that AI lets you do that you couldn't do before, but it's not only that; it's also the stuff that you could do before, but now you can do thousands
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah, it's a massive enabler. Yeah.
Exactly. So, for us, it's both an annoyance and an opportunity, because if we get ahead of that, then many of the previous solutions, even if they're not perfect, they are popular in the market. Those previous solutions will be more susceptible to AI type attacks than our solution. So we have a lot of defenses around deepfake. We have the advantage of time, because we walk with the user throughout the session and things change. And now the video cannot be cooked from before the session. It has to be, the AI needs to be so smart that it will actually understand what the user is doing, change the actions, change the video, edit everything in real time. We're not there yet, and we're not going to be there in the next few years. So we have the advantage of time. We have the advantage of technology that's pre-built for that, but it's still a problem. Right, it's still something it's a cat and mouse chase, and hopefully the good guys will win, like many other technologies that can be good or bad.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the whole plan. It's an interesting one. Did you start marketing to two segments from day one, or did that kind of evolve? And what I mean by that is you serve me as a consumer, right? But you're also serving B2B enterprise clients. Was that intentional?
Yes. So we took a very, I would say, unorthodox and also somewhat unpopular internally decision to basically go, to the two sides of the sales mechanism or the sales cycle. One, big banks, which 2 to 3 year sales cycle, long processes, very hard, but also very large deals and very lucrative deals that stay for 3 to 5 years at least. But we also, as I said before, we were very hungry when we started IronVest, and we said, we don't want to wait. We don't want to build a company for 2 years and then start sales process and then have the first customer in 5 years. We also want to solve that big problem in the market. We want to go directly to consumers because, managing your digital life is hard. I'm sure for you, it's not that hard because you're very technical and you deal with all that technology. But trust me, for my mom, it's a nightmare. She can get defrauded and scammed all the time. And me too. I mean, it's not like I'm
Everyone.
immune, right? Everyone. So we said, okay, we want to go that route as well. We made a couple of acquisitions early on, and we built a consumer business side by side with the main business. We also use the consumer business as sort of the sandbox for the bank business, for the B2B business, because it's always hard to sell to the first client because you don't have real people using your technology in production. So we said, okay, we will be the sandbox and we will have real clients. We'll prove the technology, prove it's working, prove it's not, buggy, etc. So we went and did a dual motion in IronVest. And it went well for a while. Nowadays, we think that we need to probably focus more on the main business and let the consumer business run its own, because at some point the company need to develop a DNA, and that DNA can be either or. It's very hard to develop a DNA that's both. So this is part of the excitement of the journey, to make those decisions, even if they're not popular or not easy to convince at the beginning, and then make the right adaptations and changes along the way.
Let's say there's a unique case out there of somebody watching and they need to make a similar decision. What's some of the signals that would allow them to lean one way more so than the other?
I would start from what are the signals that tell you to do both, or at least to consider doing both. And that's mostly about synergies, right? If you find synergies, but synergies in the literal way, not both of the businesses are good, but synergies in the sense that if one business is successful, it will make the other business, 10 times more successful just by that, right? We find those synergies, and we found them in two places. We found them in the technology that we like the core technology patent IP we develop for both, and in the sandbox type go to market that allows to validate the product. To your question, those signals start to diminish over time. Once the core technology was built, then it becomes all about building the solution and the product, the user experiences, the enterprise features, or the consumer features, and build all the layers on top of the core technology. And at that point, there's less synergies, right? Each one is going their
Yep.
own way, right? Also, the sandbox already did its work. It proved what it needed to prove. We don't need it anymore. So these signals diminish, and when they diminish, you're left with only the disadvantages of having a well-head business. And this is when you need to start making changes and let each business run their own.
Valid points. You started IronVest and you got funding early. How did you do that? Was it just connections in the network from your background, or was there a specific playbook that you followed? What was sort of the timeline of events?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a combination of network connections, but networks in the sense of people saw what some of us did before and had trust and etc. And that brings more investors.
Yeah.
Once you have a small set of investors that trust you, that more come. Also, I think it was about building a very solid founding team that looked like they are very hungry and able to manage the big task of getting funded early and making the right decision. It's not like we did make all the right decisions along the way, but at least we had a good chance to do that. And I think those are the two main things, right? To get funded early. If you don't have those, then you need to prove other things, right? You need to build up some credibility, some of the business, some of the technology, etc. And we spent a lot of time on building the vision and defining it and building the playbook and the strategy of the company before we got funded. But then we got funded and started building the product itself.
Okay. So you build the product, you get the funding. What's the plan? Where do you go from there? How do you go to market? Because I imagine this is it's not a massive TAM, I imagine, for this enterprise clients. It's probably a small specialized world. So how do you plan around that? Was that you, or was that the whole team, or was that your marketing partner?
Yeah. So if we're talking about the B2B business, it's banks and financial services.
Yes, so we're talking about that one, yeah.
Yeah. The TAM in terms of dollar amount is massive, right? This is part of get excited about. It's massive. One of those TAMs you don't even have to put an exact number because it doesn't matter if it's like a gazillion or bajillion. But on the other hand, it is a very small world in terms of the number of decision makers, right? Because think about it. In every bank, there's only one or two decision makers in the right departments. It's not many people. Like these people know each other. They talk. They have networks in different geographies. So when we started, we had a couple of approaches to go to market strategy. First was we're not doing mass marketing. It's not about cold LinkedIn, etc. It was about building the network from our network first. So we went to the people we knew. We gathered a very strong advisory board of people who are industry veterans that bought into the vision and the company and were willing to take us and recommend us to the right people in the industry, the right decision makers. And we made another decision to start from LatAm, from Latin America, and move from LatAm to the US. We did start conversations in the US from day one, but the idea was let's sell first to LatAm, because Latin America has enough fraud to be relevant. They have the budget, not like the US, but they do. And they are considered more open to new technologies, especially if you're new to the market. It's easier to sell. And then all the banks in the US, they look at LATAM for fraud technologies and they bring them back to the US. It's a very common maneuver. So that's what we did. And this is how we started. Now we are at the stage that we are already moving into the US, right? And things are changing and you have to change some of the products, some of the strategies, some of the messaging, but at the core, it's the same thing. You need to change the solution sometimes and the selling motion. That was the idea, to come from, early connections, start in LATAM, make good partners also that would go and sell our technology for us and expand from there. And this is where we are, right, in the second stage of that strategy.
Okay, so warm network, not cold mass DM spammy stuff. A unique ability to go into Latin America. Not everybody has that option or probably should take that option, I imagine. Was that unique to your particular business or use case? Like let's say I have I don't know, any other business. Is that always the cycle to try and test it in Latin America first and then come to the US? Because you said it's a very familiar playbook in your industry specifically.
I think it is very familiar in my industry, but I would say it's not always the right way to go. Like in previous big, products and platforms I built, for example, in Veritone and Amazon and others, that wasn't necessarily the playbook. I think it makes sense when you have technology and specific markets, like highly regulated markets in the US that are very, very hard to penetrate, very hard to, to get the foot in the door.
A lot of red tape.
To get a foot in another door, and this is one of the options. And once you prove yourself somewhere else, it's easier for the US decision makers to pull you in. Also, I would say we went through a process of understanding who we are selling to, right? And that helped that we didn't start immediately in the US, because a product like ours, we thought in day one, okay, we are selling fraud solutions and cybersecurity solutions. So we go to the fraud people in the organization. But very quickly, the discussion becomes not about fraud. It's about user experience. It's about digital experiences in the bank. And very quickly, okay, I'm convinced you're solving fraud, but your real value, you need to talk to the head of digital or the head of, consumer banking or someone who's in charge of the customer experience, because what we are really changing for the customer is we make everything move fast for him, be frictionless, right? They don't have to pick up their phone for 1,000 OTPs. They don't have to go to the branch. They don't have to call someone and answer knowledge base questions, etc. They just go about their business in the digital application or website and complete the session and done, right? So very quickly we became those, the selling motions in the organizations became, you talk to the fraud and to the business side and make a case together and bring them together, which takes time. Like those departments are not always fully aligned, and you kind of become the glue between them and move on with the sale. So it takes time, takes diligence. We had to bring people who are good at that, navigating those organizational stakeholders, etc.
Right. So I take it, a lot of conversations, and it's a good insight, isn't it? You're making the user experience seem seamless while still offering fraud protection, and you only found that out through a whole ton of conversations. Any possibility of expanding elsewhere, sort of Asia, for example? I imagine that's probably quite a large market as well.
Yes, we are already working there, working in India. India is a fantastic market for many reasons. The downside, it's harder to get in without very solid partners on the ground. People who sell to those banking services in India, they need to be from India. But we are developing those relationships, and we just had, last week I met with the second in command in the Reserve Bank of India. Very high ranking, that person is influencing the lives of so many people in India.
Right. Casual flex.
Very smart, very to the point, very innovative, right? Very open to new technologies and new ways to define identity and fraud solutions and user experiences in the banking system. So we are seeing a great opportunity there. It just takes longer to warm up the market.
That's Asia for you, isn't it? There's a saying for it in China, that especially in the north. I was watching something, and basically you have to get drunk with them first, liquor courage, because they just want to know who you really are before they do any business with you.
That is absolutely true. In IronVest, we're not in India yet, but in previous companies, I've been there a few times. Also back at MIT, we did some exchanges and projects together with Chinese universities, etc. And it's very much like you're describing, Russell. Like they are a lot less transactional than us in the Western culture. Like get to know you, get to know your family, they need to drink and eat with you, sing karaoke with you, and only then talk about your business.
Yes.
Positions, etc. It's hard.
Once you're in, though, you're in.
Exactly. I mean, it was hard to cope because I'm I like socialing like with people a lot, but not as a precondition to start pitching my bit. And like I want to talk about my business, but no.
Drink first. I go to Shenzhen. I'm saying that wrong. Soon, towards the end of the year, for an AI conference. So that should be interesting. So looking forward to that and seeing that city. It's like the Silicon Valley of China, I hear. So it'll be my first time there. Okay, let's change gears. You have a lengthy background in AI. It's kind of your thing, as you said on a previous call of ours. Do you think most companies are using AI as sort of like a feature ad? Are we still missing the whole point of AI? Where are we at right now in terms of the buzzword of AI in business?
We are growing into it, right? It's AI is something that just popped up in our lives very quickly. If you think about the evolution of technology, it's just in a few years became so strong and ubiquitous. And if you think about the trend, if you believe in the trend, and there's various debates like, is it going to continue improving the way we imagine, or slower or faster? But put aside those predictions, it is going to improve, and it is pretty good right now for a lot of things. And people are trying to figure out what to do with it. And remember, the vast majority of businesses, when AI came, they already existed, right? So guess what? They now need to add AI as an add-on somehow, and they need to add it both on their kind of back office, their company operations, and to their product, right? So those are, first of all, those are two very different missions, right? And you have to remember they need to add those capabilities to something that already exists. When we start seeing companies that are built in AI, like born in AI, we're going to start seeing different things, right? That we're not seeing now. Right now, it's more, add-on features. You go to Kayak to book a trip, and you see like a chat that you can do everything you could do before. Now you can do with a chat, right? Things like that. But if someone wrote completely from scratch travel booking service in the age of AI, it wouldn't look like that. It would look completely different. I don't know exactly how it would look like, but I'm sure it would look completely different, right? So we are now seeing the step one, I would say, or phase one, where AI is being bolted on to existing stuff.
Yep.
And at the same time, people slowly and quietly are building the next generation of, not always quietly, but right now not as big, building the next generation of how things would look as AI native. By the way, it happened with cloud. It happened before with SaaS. It happened with mobile, right? It was one thing to take your website and make it mobile friendly, and a completely different thing to be mobile first and think about the mobile experience and how to do it to match the mobile use case, right? So this is what we're seeing right now. In Veritone, IronVest, we're trying to be more the second than the first, but it's not always possible, right? We're trying to think about those experiences as if we are building them now from scratch. For example, on the consumer business, we're trying to completely reinvent how computer security and consumer security and privacy would look like in the age of AI, right? It's not like you get a chat with your security product. We are thinking about it more as you have your own AI that manages all your security. And by the way, it might be using tools, right, for you, the tools that you used to use before, right? Almost like having your own personal CISO, like a security officer or CIO, right? Just like, I have it in a company, I can have it in my family or my personal life. Someone who manage and make decisions, buy tools, use tools, make all decisions for me, but is an AI agent, right? That could be possible in the age of AI, and this is what we're building on the consumer side, for example. So that's the difference I see between bolting on AI and adding on and building it AI native.
Right. Tell us more about that. So I believe you're calling it Ivy, right? Is that known?
Right. So when we started to apply our identity fraud prevention technology for consumers, we looked at the market and we saw that, first of all, it's a very big market. Like more people buy and pay security and privacy services, SaaS services, than I imagined before, right? It's a giant market. And there's very big players in this market. And if you look at the tools that are available, this market is very fragmented. You have everything from VPNs to password managers to scam prevention tools, phishing prevention, masking services, cards, you name it. There's so many of them. Each one of them has its own kind of market leaders, etc. And you need to buy from so many things, and you don't know what to buy. Sometimes you don't even know that those services exist and you need to have them. And even if you buy them at like, $9.99, you don't necessarily know how to use them. So, there's very little value at the end to the consumer. And again, just like in the previous story, scam and fraud still exist massively. Even though people spend billions, like the market spend billions on those tools, scams still exist in billions. So we said, okay, if we protect all those services and we bring our identity fraud prevention technology, it's not going to be enough because people still need to use at the end a solution or service. They need to have something that they use at the end of the day. And then we said, let's introduce Ivy. And Ivy was a big aha moment because Ivy, in our vision, is making all of this industry, all of those tools, basically like a toolbox. It's like, when you have a problem with your plumbing at home, you invite a plumber. And some people fix it on their own. They buy the tools and
That's
they buy
waiting
the
for that.
part and they fix it. Fine. Those people will still want to fix that. But basically, we're asking everyone online to be their own plumbers, to buy the tools and buy the parts and put them together and understand how to use them. No, we want to build an smart agent that is taking all those tools from the industry and just use them for you. Just apply them for you at the right time. Right? You go to a website that's a little sketchy, it would create login credentials that are completely masked, not your own email. It goes to a website that track too much of your information, it would mask the information. If you buy from a place that has history of data breaches that steal credit card, it will create a virtual card for you and put the virtual card in. And those examples just go on and on and on, right? Most people wouldn't know how to protect themselves online and wouldn't care or wouldn't take the effort to do it. And Ivy will just do it for them. And this could be the next,
Right.
evolution in how those things will evolve in the market of security and privacy.
Yeah, the virtual card's a good example. We've all put our credit card details in or whatever and gone, oh, and just click the button anyway. It should be fine. Yeah, okay. That's exciting. How long do you think that'll take to develop? And I won't hold you to it, but do you have a date in mind or a game plan?
We built it. We're building it for a while. It's working. It's in beta right
Okay.
now. Invite people slowly into the beta. Once it's fully polished, we'll release it. It already has a bunch of capabilities to use those tools. And again, the vision is at the end of the day, and most consumers wouldn't know what a CISO is, but like they would understand that they have a security concierge or advisor that is just managing the digital security and privacy online and making all the decisions.
When you break it down like that, it makes sense. Kfir, let's do a lightning round. I'm going to ask you some questions. I just want you to answer them, whatever comes off the top of your head on the first things, if you're up for it, and then we'll wrap up the show.
Sounds good.
Okay. What's one AI opportunity you think most people are sleeping on right now?
I want to say agents. I know it's a kind of common answer. It's nothing new, but I want to say agents because people are still using AI or thinking about AI more as a chat, right? I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to give me an answer, but send AI to do the work and come back with questions or results is a different paradigm for having hard time to trust. And this is where it's going. I think this is where the value is going to come from.
I completely agree. Even though it might be the standard answer, there's millions of businesses out there still not leveraging AI agents with founders that I speak to still today. Okay. Having AI go out there and do the jobs is an interesting segue. What's a job that AI won't replace in the next 5 years, do you think?
Won't replace?
Yeah. It's a loaded question because that implies that it's going to replace everything. But
yeah, I'm on the side of the debate that I think it's going to replace more than people believe it will replace, right? And I think we're looking the wrong direction in what we think it's not going to replace. Like people get very touchy about it's not going to replace me because I use creativity and I use, kind of human emotions. I put my emotion into it's going to replace that, right? At least the 99%, right? If you're a designer, you're going to be replaced unless maybe you're Leonardo da Vinci, but you're probably not, right? And most of us are not. So the 0.1% of the human genius might not be replaced immediately, but the rest will. What's not going to be replaced, I think we still haven't proved that AI can do anything that's physical in a meaningful way. I know there's lots of work on robotics and all that, but it's still not proven. You can see it's funny, you look at the science fiction movies from the 50s and you see people in spaceships kind of roaming the galaxy and talking in a landline phone or like a but what really changed is communication, and computers moved very fast, and energy and mechanics didn't move as fast as we anticipated. So I think still everything that's physical is TBD on whether it's going to be replaced.
Yeah, well, I was going to say maybe with the exception of Uber drivers, especially with
Of course.
Tesla and of drivers, Uber drivers and taxi drivers and everything. I think AI is already there. As we know, we've seen what Elon just did with robo-taxi and everything like that. So
I agree. This is amazing. But I think every time there's a very specific task, we might be able to do that. Even that takes a very long time. But that general purpose body we were given, not yet replaceable by AI. But our mind might.
yeah, I mean, think of the example you used before, like a plumber. That can be a pretty technical job. Like you got to get crawl spaces and all these sorts of things. And I think we're a little while away from that. Anyways, let's wrap it up with what's one piece of advice you'd give a SaaS founder that's building something with AI today?
There's many advices, but I would say if I need to pick one, always evolve. Try not to be static in your thinking, in your actions, in your state of mind. You start the journey. I've seen so many people, and myself included, you start with an idea and you love the idea, you validated it, you think it's great, but it will and it should change over time. So if you are flexible to make those changes, if you love making those changes, like we talked at the beginning, if you learn and adapt fearlessly, you have a good chance. If you stick too much with your original idea and you don't want to evolve, you don't want to change, you have much less chances to make it fit the market and bring success. And also, you have more chances to get frustrated because you push away frustration when you try new things because you haven't failed for a year on that new thing. You're only failing for a few weeks. That would be my main thing. Like people go with like high focus and this is what I want to do. Do it. Have that motivation and focus and passion, but be ready to evolve constantly and fearlessly.
Well, this has been really exciting. Thanks again for jumping on. For those who want to learn a little bit more about IronVest or yourself, where's the best place that they could go ahead and do that?
Website, ironvest.com. Always welcome to reach out to me. I love talking about this with people who are interested. And yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, once again, thanks for jumping on. This has been the Scale Forward podcast. Kfir, really appreciate you being here. See you on the next episode.
Pleasure.